Depression is a very common emotional illness that affects about 25% of the population of North America alone. And this is the baseline outside of the COVID pandemic results. An important thing to consider is the fact that this also matches the 1 in 4 people who have chronic anxiety here. Now, there are a few different kinds of depression. Some forms appear to be inborn and or seemingly so, non-conditional, because they begin from early childhood, as early as around age 5, and persist throughout the person's life with no known causation. These people tend to experience spontaneous episodes of depression throughout the week. And it's chronic, right? Melancholy is such a predominating emotion for these people that doctors suggest that it's just a natural intrinsic part of their psychology and personality. So the term for this is temperamental depression or trait depression. It's just your temperament in this case. And I'll explain more about this in a moment. There's also seasonal depression. And it's similar to this because it's chronic, but the mere attributes of the cold and dark seasons just have a really substantial effect on the person's mood. Now, in other people, the symptoms are even worse because their lows are immediately followed by episodes or phases of mania where they feel abnormally excited. But they know they're just going to crash from that high and feel depressed again. Or if they're in a manic cycle, it will last for a week or longer, and they won't be able to sleep properly that whole time. This is bipolar syndrome. Now, as far as I know, when your mood is very irregular like this, and your depression follows with overexcitability, this is happening usually because there's a hormonal imbalance. And the thing that causes this imbalance is a worn-out nervous system. This is why most cases of depression are linked with anxiety or post-traumatic stress. Something detrimental or traumatic happened to the person, and that's what's making them depressed. Now, some people don't remember any particular traumas, but many do. And the people who do remember the traumas are even more depressed because the things they went through, just the mere thought of them is very depressing to think about. And the fact that they've spent so many years feeling miserable, it's depressing. So when you waste your life on a trauma, that is a cause of depression, just feeling that sadness for yourself, that it's not really self-pity, it's like pitying for yourself for having to go through something like that. And combine those sad memories, depressing memories, with a real imbalance because the trauma has caused a chronic hypertension in you. So now your body is depleting itself of minerals. That's making things worse. That's making your mood even more irregular. It's kind of like adrenal fatigue. Well, it is a form of that. So these are causal forms of depression known as dysthymia. And there are subcategories, different kinds of dysthymia, different kinds of non-causal or non-conditional depression. But these are the kind of the main differentiations or categories. Sometimes people don't seem to have a reason. It seems to be their nature to be depressed all the time. And other people, they're depressed for a reason. Now, like all mental health problems, there are many causes, so it's usually a combination of things. Someone who's naturally depressed, they're going to get even more depressed when something bad happens to them. So it's a combination of who they are and also things happening. Other people, bad things happen to them, but they're more resilient, so they get depressed for some time, but it doesn't last because they're more resilient. Now, going back to unexplainable, non-conditional, inborn temperamental depression. Based on my observations of people that I know or know about, like idols and musicians and actors, people who've struggled a lot with this, I really think doctors were definitely onto something when they first hypothesized that depression could also just be a very challenging but natural predisposition of a person's psychology. And the reason why I think this is because of certain parts of yogic science, certain studies within this. What I've noticed about some half dozen people that I've observed and looked into is that in spite of their differences, their very different histories and different lifestyles, they all had one thing in common, and that was their astrology. All of their astrology was the same. Aquarius, Pisces sun, Aquarius, Pisces moon, Cancer sun, Pisces moon, Scorpio sun, Cancer moon, Aries, Pisces sun, Scorpio, Sagittarius moon. It's all like this. These are friends and these are famous people. You know, Chester Bennington, the lead singer of Linkin Park, was that intense Pisces Aries cusp. And he had the really, that very rancorous, vengeful Scorpio, Sagittarius moon. Like that is really intense combination, all the emotions and the anger of the fire energy. Robin Williams, we all thought he was such a happy, joyful guy. He seemed to have lived a good life as far as we can tell. I'm sure he didn't struggle with anger either as much as Chester did. Yet Robin was very depressed too. And what was he? He was a Cancer Leo sun, so Cancer Leo cusp sun, Pisces moon, yet again. All the Pisceans in my life that I've met and the friends of mine, like 90% of them are depressed chronically. They've always been. It seems to be their nature. And so the list goes on. All of these people are predominantly water signs. That's the key similarity that they have. So my theory, personally, on this temperamental depression is that it's a byproduct of the cosmic elements of the psyche. The 4 elements, earth, water, fire, air, that combination of them. In other words, these are very emotional people by nature. The water element is the element of emotion, not to mention the fire element, which is another very emotional element. And if your personality placements, so sun, moon, and rising, are something like 75% water, then I think it should come to us as no surprise, those of us who are into yogic science and believe this study, that having a lot of water in your astrology like this just makes you a depressed person regularly. Any Scorpio knows what it feels like to live with trauma. Scorpio depression is very bitter because it's often directly caused by trauma and mixed with anger and rancor and vengefulness and self-pity. This is very distinct and serious because the other water signs don't usually experience such intense anger and vengefulness and even self-pity either when they're depressed. But having to handle difficult problems, going through stuff makes Scorpio people very depressed. They're sensitive. It's saddening to think about these traumas to them, and at the same time, they're still holding on. And it's their nature to be angry. It's a very angry energy. So this happens to Scorpions because they have the most detailed and perfectionist perception. So depression takes many forms. Now, how do we treat it, and how do we eliminate it entirely. There are dozens of little things we can do that help alleviate the symptoms, which I'm sure you're already doing. There are lots of things that we naturally turn to try to get away from the depression, try to distract ourselves from it. But some wholesome things are exercising. That's great because it feels great and you know it's good for your health. So that tends to boost your mood right there. Similarly, going out for walks, especially in nature, are very helpful. Cleaning is another good one because when you get rid of a lot of things, it takes a lot of attachment and burden off your shoulders so you can focus on the things that matter more to you. And if you don't drink coffee or caffeinated drinks, a little bit will help. I've done some talks on coffee because it's really detrimental to your health, actually. Caffeine is a very powerful drug. But what it does is it immediately boosts your mood and motivation because it allows your dopamine to run way more efficiently. And it suppresses another hormone that is responsible for sluggishness and drowsiness and sleep. So just make sure to not go over 2 cups or 200 milligrams a day because that can cause diabetes easily. And since we may also be dealing with a hormonal imbalance, it's good to revitalize ourselves. And some of the things we can take are vitamin D, because especially in the West and in northern parts of the world, everybody's deficient in vitamin D, and vitamin D is great for your mood. So vitamin D and magnesium, that mineral, are very good against depression. Magnesium has hundreds of nerve and brain regulating functions. It's a great supplement. It can even help with, taking a capsule can immediately make you feel sluggish and drowsy, which is, it's good if you have insomnia or if you just have trouble sleeping. So it's good to take before bed. But it makes everything relax. And so, I've done talks about how this helps with digestion. So I highly recommend investing in a high quality magnesium, bisglycinate or malate. Oxide can be a bit hard to digest, hard on the bowels, but the other kinds are usually good. Or a all-in-one kind that has a little bit of everything. Now, all of these solutions are more or less temporary. Right? For some people, it might be enough to just go out of the house more frequently and do their personal work at a cafe instead of being alone and cooped up all the time. But for others, they really need to penetrate deeper into the cause of the problem so they can get really lasting improvement. So for this, like nearly all the problems I address in my talks, you need to meditate. What did the Dalai Lama say about problems? He said that if you want to untie a knot, right, if solve a problem, you have to figure out how it was tied in the first place. This is what meditation does for us. I'm not just referring to mindfulness. Mindfulness allows you to sit with a feeling until it runs its course. And this theoretically works. But it can take a lot of work as well. It can take a lot of practice. Some people heal completely from this type of serenity meditation. Teal Swan and Eckhart Tolle are famous for teaching presence as their means of healing trauma and depression. And this is a form of mindfulness. They both experienced an ecstasy that followed after sitting through levels of depression and pain. And even though the ecstasy passes after some time, they were both fundamentally healed. So their depression was gone and it never returned in the same way or with the same severity. But what I'm also referring to is insight meditation. In this work of spirituality, we need to purify the mind of the qualities that cause suffering in the first place. This is holistic healing. And this is only done through comprehension. For some problems in life, we have to just suffer through them for some time in order to get used to it. And then we comprehend. That's part of comprehension. That's why we are put into the positions we find ourselves in life. It's either to learn or to pay karma. So we gain a lot of comprehension just by going through adverse experiences. But to make the ride of life easier and the healing more efficient, we also receive comprehension through our own efforts in meditation. When we discover the doctrine and we take advantage of it and we practice it, we investigate. And when we discover the mental defect that was causing the problem and we understand it, then the Tathagata can decapitate it, and this is what frees us. This is the proper way to heal. This is the means to enlightenment, after all. What's freed is the consciousness itself. Bit by bit, percentage by percentage, our true nature, which is happy, completely happy, begins to shine through that prison of the mind. Now, to do this, I need to emphasize that you have to meditate on the problem. A lot of people have heard about mindfulness, so they start practicing and all they do is try to relax and watch their breath. That is not meditation. That is concentration. You won't learn anything about a problem if all you do is watch your breath and stay in the physical world. You need to go deep into the depths of your mind to see what's going on in there. If you want to practice mindfulness, that's equally effective, but you have to be mindful of the depression itself. The breath is just a starting point. So become mindful of the problems and the feelings they provoke. Some people can stay awake while doing this and saturate themselves in negative feelings so much that they come out of it feeling purified. This is what Eckhart Tolle experienced during his most severe depressive period of his life. But for others, it may be better to go into a deeper meditative state where you're halfway between sleep and wakefulness. You're drowsy, and the hypnagogic imagery is showing. This is what produces insight. It's through these insights and dreams where we receive wisdom. Ideally, if you can fall asleep and maintain cognizance, then you can have an even deeper meditation. But you have to just make sure that you're paying attention the whole time and that you remember what was shown to you after you wake up. For more precise steps on meditation, see my video, How to Meditate. Sabe Sata Suki Hontu.